Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talk They Hear You podcast. What parents are saying, prevention wisdom, authenticity, and empowerment. I'm Debbie Burnt, Director of Parent Movement 2.0, and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we talk with 7 Talk They Hear You Spotlight partners. These are prevention groups across the country who are using Talk They Hear You materials in their communities in truly dynamic ways. We developed this episode in recognition of SAMHSA's National Prevention Week, May 7th through 13th, 2023. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration knows that prevention happens all year long, but SAMHSA takes this opportunity once a year to highlight and showcase work throughout the prevention field, work that helps all of us confront the societal challenges surrounding substance misuse together. National Prevention Week's tagline, a celebration of possibility, is just that. It's about communities coming together to celebrate the possibilities and brighter futures that exist, thanks to the ongoing work of prevention partners like the ones we talked to today. Our guests have been amazing. They are endlessly creative and understand the value of building impressions, cohesive messaging, and messaging across multiple behavioral health concerns. They praise the value of providing evidence-based information to their communities that is ready to use without having to create campaigns from scratch. Listen to our first guests, Leslie Hoylman and Carrie McKee from Clark County Partners in Prevention, based in Springfield, Ohio. They talk to us about the benefits of being a Talk They Hear You community partner, the value of Talk They Hear You materials, and feedback they've received from the communities they serve.
In 2021, that's when we became a Talk They Hear You community partner. It opened the doorway to getting all those other community partner specific resources and getting really excellent information to include on all of our different social media posts and our newsletters that were going out into the community.
And what specifically was the information from the partnership that you got?
What's really neat is every month as a community partner, they send us curated content that we can then use across multiple platforms. In our coalition, we are a staff of 2. And so we at times are spread quite thin in our responsibilities. And so sometimes social media has a tendency to fall further and further down on the to-do list, even though it's a great messaging platform, it's a great vehicle to get education out there. That those Talk They Hear You campaign, community partner campaign materials really are very advantageous in us being able to maximize our time, but also get really excellent information out there and also connect our families and our parents with the Talk They Hear You podcast and other sources like the mobile app so that we can reach a larger audience with that.
That's fantastic. Do you know if any of the parents in your community have used the mobile app? Have you gotten any feedback on that?
It's a really good question. I personally have not gotten any feedback on it yet. I have demoed it or demonstrated it. We have an excellent family program here called Thriving Families, where we meet with small groups of families. And I've talked about these really readily available resources where they can practice having those conversations with their children before they go into real life mode with them and work out the different kinks, because a lot of parents are nervous about having those conversations or want to make sure that the information that they're giving their children is accurate and well vetted. So I've demonstrated it quite a bit.
And the demonstration is the key, I think, because again, in some ways it's simple. Nobody knows the tools are there, or once you know a tool is there, you can engage with it in your own time, in your own space. So
absolutely.
Is there anything else that you would say that you, along those lines of value, either it made it easier or you saw some effect or it just felt good to get the right information out?
Yeah. One of the things that we did is use the videos, the PSAs, and we've had amazing feedback from those on how well done they are, how informative they are. And that's where we're getting a lot of parents telling us, oh, they did see those videos, or community members saying, yes, they're seeing the videos. We were able to partner with our local movie and get them played before the advertisements for the movies coming up. And that's probably one of our strongest ways that we have been able to promote Talk They Hear You and to be able to get positive feedback. And those were also streamed. Leslie, what can tell you more about the streaming of all of that, because we were able to even push that a little bit farther.
Yes. So just this past year, we were awarded a messaging grant from the Ohio Center for Excellence in Prevention and Mental Health Promotion. And through that funding, they had specific programs that we could choose. And one of them was Talk They Hear You, which we were so excited to be a part of it and to be selected. So with that funding, we were able to really get those PSAs out into the community on multiple platforms, not just in the movie theaters, but also on streaming platforms like Hulu and YouTube and in a specific demographics within our county. So it was amazing. We've had such great feedback on that and follow through on watching the videos and all the different impressions we've gotten from those. We just know that message is, we've had this top of mind awareness bombardment between the movie theater and all these different streaming platforms, and then our billboard campaigns. And we've also been utilizing it with sponsorship. So our most recent sponsorship coming up here in the spring that we're very excited about, we've sponsored with our local park district. It's called National Trails of Parks and Recreation District. And we've designed banners using the Talk They Hear You logos and some messaging ideas that we are putting out into all of our local parks, our community pool, places that families are going to be frequenting a lot this season throughout the summer.
The t-shirt that I'm wearing has the Talk They Hear You on the back of it. All of our coalition members have this t-shirt that we're wearing, so we're trying to get that message out. We also hosted an event at one of our high schools, which was for a basketball game. It was a sporting event, so it was to black out the team that was coming in, but the message on the back of the shirt said, Talk They Hear You. So we had all of those students and parents with those t-shirts on. And we've done multiple things in schools where we're putting the logo Talk They Hear You on the Chromebook covers, different things that they will have in their school. Even we're providing some chairs in the gym for one school with parents are the number one defense on one side and then Talk They Hear You on the other. So we're doing lots of things to promote that message.
This is amazing work and so multifaceted. It's like there's no environment that you guys haven't been in. What are you showing us, Leslie?
So this is our newest kind of design. So this is basically a cell phone box, so a disconnect box. And so we have the Talk They Hear You messaging on the back of our cell phone disconnect boxes. So these are going to be set up at different eateries in our community. They're handed out to families, distributed to schools. So they're going to be set up in prominent areas all throughout the community. And it just says, take the disconnect challenge. So with the hopes that families or people that are hanging out together, they're going to put their cell phones in here and then be able to talk, right? Talk face to face, build some bonding. And then on the back is the messaging, talking early and often prevents substance use and builds a stronger relationship. Keep talking, they're listening. And then we have the Talk They Hear You logo and branding on that. So
let me just describe it for a second because we're audio. It's a cardboard box that you would fold into shape.
Yeah, it's about 8 inches wide and about 5 to 7 inches deep.
It's a little display kind of unit almost. And then you've got messaging on the sides.
Yes.
Really fantastic. Again, that concept of talk and connect. I love that you're focusing on the substance use message, but you're also broadening it too. Just families be together, talk, and connect with each other.
It's what I really like about the Talk They Hear You message is we have rolled it into every prevention strategy that we have done. That came from a youth summit where students were working on being unplugged so that there would be better communication between their parents and themselves. So it was an unplugged day that they sponsored. So we continued with that disconnect and to to connect and talk, they hear you. And we've done that with so many different projects that we've been working on, and it rolls wonderfully into many other campaigns. It's our one constant. No matter what we're promoting out there, we can add that talk, they hear you message to it.
It's amazing to hear how Clark County makes Talk They Hear You fit into so many topics and contexts. We hear this theme from many of our partners. Here is Shannon Dalton from the Gallia Jackson Meigs Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Board, also in Ohio. She talks about the value of multi-substance topics and how her colleagues organized around the Talk They Hear You campaigns, ready-to-use tools.
I was introduced to the Talk They Hear You campaign through the Strategic Prevention Framework Partnership for Success Communities of Practice in Southeast Ohio. That grant
Okay.
funding was through Ohio University, and we've had great partnerships with them. We had started on some early level work because I work with 4 coalitions across prevention with suicide prevention. So 4 different groups, 4 different counties, 4 different personalities.
Yeah.
And we worked on some of those basic concepts. And one of our deliverables for this grant work,
Yeah.
we had to implement Talk They Hear You as a campaign in our communities.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and did you find that the Talk They Hear You message translated across the coalitions? Did it work in different contexts?
Surprisingly, I would say yes. It
Good.
has actually worked in a broader sense. I was able to help the Suicide Prevention Collaborative even look at Talk They Hear You. Specifically, it's the Screen for Success. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
tool right there that parents can utilize to be able to assess the mental health
Yeah,
state of their child right now at this time. And so I use that as a part of, you should use this too and promote this.
right.
Uh,
And did they take you up on that?
they're adding it to their website.
Oh, that's great.
All of our coalitions, we all came together. We all said that we're going to promote this
Yeah,
campaign, and there is value in, I would say, every single element. You can pick and
yeah.
choose. You don't have to do it all at once. That's what we
Right,
have found.
right.
Do what works for
Yeah.
you and your community. But even if you do it in little baby steps, to be able to
But
have options and steps. So we kicked off billboard campaigns. We ran the PSAs. It's actually rather stress free in the sense that we had a lot of stuff that was already made for us that we didn't have to worry about. Oh, we have to create a campaign. We have to implement this. We have to make sure it works in this community. There was
right.
stuff that was already there that we were able to use.
So this concept of prevention, as multifaceted as it is, it sounds like you guys are experiencing there are some commonalities and there's some places where messaging and objectives come together and Talk They Hear You is able to meet a lot of those needs. Am I hearing that correct?
Yes, you are. Especially when it came to our schools, they know underage drinking is an issue.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
but for us to be able to really get them to connect, when we said they have information on vaping,
Hmm.
that just sort of changed the game, as it were, for the schools, because they just looked at underage drinking as an old topic, but where they're currently seeing a lot of the vaping and its presence in the schools right now, that's kind of where we went to sort of get that foot in the door. But we're saying, don't forget this element of underage drinking. This is not in our
Right.
faces every day. It is
Right.
something that it's still there, it's still a presence.
That is a really interesting point. So, because Talk They Hear You, even though it has a real underage drinking core, it continues to add other substances. And like you said, vaping is one of those hot topics out there. Marijuana is a hot
Mhm.
topic. And so you're able to get in and talk with schools based on the
Mhm.
substance.
Yeah, definitely opioids were,
Yeah.
our region is hit very hard with the opioid epidemic. And we're going to be passing out the opioid pamphlets out for drug take back days to
Great.
get that information out there, because we
Great.
have bags with resources and information, but encouraging people to do that.
Shannon went on to tell us how the prevention organizations that she works with co-branded the Talk They Hear You materials.
We had the Atom Board logos and, of course, our community coalition. Each one of us, we were all on there together to show that we were unified across all of our counties with this message. We had initially thought that we would keep it in our region, but we decided no, we wanted to come together. We may be 3 separate counties, but we all wanted to show that we were coming together on this. It was really a large mass sprinkling. We didn't leave, I don't think, any media possibility untouched.
That's great.
It was in our movie theaters too, so.
So you had billboards, radio, movie theaters. Did you have cable? You said cable TV, right?
We did the local television stations.
Okay.
So we had the digital billboards, geocaching. We had banners made for the schools to go out, to be hung out during the game days. But we've not stopped.
Our partner, Doris Nardelli, the Director of Communications at the Central Florida Behavioral Health Network, speaks about getting the most out of their communication dollar with consistent messaging offered by Talk They Hear You.
About 3 years ago, we decided, as a managing entity who services these 14 counties with the public system of care, the safety net of care for behavioral health services, we fund coalitions and what we call prevention partners that are active in each of our 14 counties. However, because we are spread out and it is 14 counties, we wanted to do a comprehensive messaging campaign about our main targeted focus area, which was underage alcohol use. So 3 years ago, we met with our coalitions and said, we're going to take some of our funding from the block grant and we are going to fund a comprehensive campaign throughout our 14 counties. We can talk about what we used and how we used it because it's very comprehensive as we move forward. But this would service the coalition's needs, meeting with families and parents, as well as the prevention partners who provide services in schools and those sort of things. So 3 years ago, we decided to do this. So I started looking and I found SAMHSA's Talk They Hear You campaign. And I said, this is perfect. We don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. We can use some very, very good material, partner with a great partner, as we always do with SAMHSA, and we can use the Talk They Hear You campaign materials. And we did.
Specifically, Doris told us they use the following materials and calls to action to drive local engagement, and she shares impressive statistics around the impressions the campaign made in the Central Florida service area.
The radio spots and the TV spots, the PSAs. We put these out also on social media as well as doing paid communication media messaging out on TV broadcasts and social media, as I mentioned. And we have enhanced our website. We have dedicated pages and a floater that comes up on our websites because our call to action in all of our messaging is go to our website, because that's where parents and caregivers and the community partners and stakeholders can get the information they need to share with the youth. And of course, the Talk They Hear You is make time to talk to your children and young people about alcohol and a proper response. From the floater that comes up, you can pick Talk They Hear You, go directly to the page. And from that page, you can get the Screen for Success. You can download the 5 tips for conversation starters. You can click on other podcasts. We encourage people to download and use the mobile app. I do a monthly interview show with 2 local personalities, Queen Bee, she's called, which is a hip hop station, and Ronnie Lane, who's on the sports station. And we do topical issues, and I've encouraged using what you guys put out and what to talk about monthly and urging the listeners, parents, to go get the resources they need, to have it at their fingertips, download the mobile app. We really put a push on Screen for Success out to their followers on social media, as well as we push that out on social media as well. And we found an 85% increase in our traffic to our website since we started the campaign 3 years ago, and has
Oh,
stayed
wow.
up and elevated. And just to put it in perspective, Florida has about 22 million people who live in Florida. And in our area, our 14 counties, we're about 6.5 million of that
Oh, wow.
22.
Okay.
And just last year on the campaigns that we ran, if we look at total impressions, we
Yes.
had over 151 million total impressions last year that we delivered in all the mediums that we used. We are saturating our local communities now for 3 years with the
Yes.
Talk They Hear You campaign and the underage alcohol prevention campaign. So a lot of people are aware of the
Good.
campaign and what's
Yeah.
available and how to get information they need. We also talk a lot about our coalitions, and
Yeah.
we have other methods of getting people to realize you have a local office you can walk into and talk to somebody there. And if you don't feel comfortable in the virtual world and you
Yeah.
want to go in and talk to someone and handle and get some information, you can do that too.
Those are unbelievable numbers, huh? 150 million total impressions. Wow. Now we go on to hear from Sue Woods at the Fayette County Prevention Coalition in Fayetteville, West Virginia. She tells us that the Talk They Hear You licensing process was easy and how they are taking advantage of the consistency and convenience of Talk They Hear You.
I began working with the coalition in January of 2021, right after they were awarded the Drug Free Communities Grant. And in the work plan that they submitted when they applied for the grant, it talked about building a campaign and how are we going to reach parents. And so I started doing research instead of having to build a campaign from scratch. And I found the Talk They Hear You campaign. And so we applied for a license, and we've been using their materials ever since.
How was that license application process?
It was really easy. Right.
Okay.
Get an email back, confirm some information.
Awesome. And the license is free, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that your understanding? Okay. Great.
Yes.
So, do you talk to parents in school, or is there a larger community context? Anything along those lines about how you speak to parents or caregivers?
I would say the majority of my conversations with parents have been through the schools. We attend as many open houses as we can, and our schools do something called parent engagement nights. So about
Okay.
every other month, our elementary schools have done these parent engagement nights, and we've been asked to speak at several of them.
Excellent. Like a parent education kind of event.
It's an
Yeah.
education time, plus it has an element of some type of fun interaction with their child as well. So most
Oh,
recently, we did an event where we paired some board games with protective factors. So they were playing with their children as they were learning some things they could do in their home to help shield their kids from substance use.
were these commercially available board games, or did you create them with
Commercially
protective
available.
factor? Okay, got it. But that idea of connecting with each other and bonding and that being protective.
Mhm.
So, what kinds of Talk They Hear You tools have you used, and how have you used them?
We have used so many. One thing that we definitely use is the brochures at the open houses. We always
Okay,
hand out the how to talk to your children about vaping. That is
excellent.
an issue.
Yeah.
We use the social media templates every month to make sure
Okay.
that we are being active with the community in Facebook, Instagram, those platforms. We use the Talk They Hear You public service announcements.
Okay.
So I have a 14-year-old, so everything about my job is near and dear to my heart. But he told me the other day, he said, "Mom, I heard you on the radio." I was like, "What?" And what we did was we used the PSA and we paired it with a tagline brought to you by the Fayette Prevention Coalition. And that's the piece that he heard
Your
my
voice.
voice on. So it's good to know that those are being played in our community. And then we have some other things that we have kind of modified from the Talk They Hear You line.
Perfect. Tell me about those. That is the intention, is we want them to be personalized.
So one thing that we did was there are signs available on the Talk They Hear You site that
Yeah.
are smaller, like a 4x6. And so we use those as postcards, and we sent them out to the incoming 6th, 9th, and 12th graders last school year over the summer. And they had different messages. So one was about talking to your kid about drinking and driving, and that was towards the 12th graders, whereas just having conversations on the way to practice about the dangers of drugs and alcohol went to the 6th grade parents. Another thing
Nice.
is we have a billboard up in our county, but we just
Excellent.
modified the size to make that work. We've done banners at football fields. We've done yard signs. We've done some digital media that has included the Talk They Hear You, like web banners on certain websites.
So kind of an ad placement or like a geocaching kind of thing, or okay. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about the digital elements.
So we worked with a local advertising company, and it went to Fayette County in a adult age range because it was geared towards parents, not towards the
Right.
kids.
Right.
And the web banners that popped up had the Talk They Hear You messaging and Talk They Hear You logo and our coalition logo on it as well. And that would pop up on certain websites that our community uses more often, like maybe weather.com or maybe the school site or things like that.
Oh, and your local advertising company probably knows what the community spends time on.
Yes.
Love the targetedness of that. Is there anything else you would say about the value of the tools or the campaign?
I would say that my favorite I have more than one favorite thing.
Okay.
So one thing is the consistency of it. It has the same look and feel and message across if you use it for digital, if you use it for a billboard, if you're handing out the brochure. It's so consistent. So I hope that the parents in our community are seeing that and it's registering with them.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
The organization of it is great. When you do the social media piece, it tells you do this picture with this blurb, and it could go to this link, and that's another piece that I really appreciate.
Scott Oskey, CEO of the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board in Cleveland, Ohio, shares some of their numbers, their focus on a call to action, and the value of how the campaign progresses and its evidence base.
At the Adams Board, we've been aware of the campaign, and we started sharing related messages to it as soon as it was released back in 2014. But what actually happened then is we localized the campaign in 2021, and we launched it as part of a 4-phase substance use disorder public awareness effort. And those 4 phases were prevention, connection to treatment, stigma reduction, and celebrating recovery. So we were very eager when we saw this campaign, and we knew that we definitely wanted to be a part of it.
Wow, it really sounds like you understand the life cycle of substance use and have crafted something powerful for your community. I love that Talk They Hear You fits into that. Were there specific elements of the campaign that you guys used locally?
So our local campaign, we featured the prevention messaging on billboards and posters. We also did bus advertising, internal and external. We did radio spots, we did television spots, streaming spots, and a lot on social media as well. So the prevention portion of our campaign ran for 3 months, and that was May through July in 2022. And we also took the opportunity then to create a partner toolkit for our local partners to support the promotion of the campaign. And actually, I have some great results to share. We had over 1.3 million weekly impressions, and that that totaled over 15.8 million impressions. We had 2.1 million digital, social media, and streaming ad impressions. We did 20 print ads we purchased in local neighborhood publications and the largest newspaper in Cuyahoga County. We had over 1,200 radio ads that played on various stations. We had about 2,000 visits during the campaign to that website, and we had a telephone number on there for people to call about the campaign. And it was an evidence-based campaign, right? SAMHSA went through and they did that research on there, so we knew that it was the information we were providing was the right information to provide.
There's definitely a progression. Parents need to first just know that they need to be talking, and I don't think surprising to you or I, parents don't really know that. They don't necessarily understand, and they're a little confused about, okay, how important is this topic of drugs and alcohol, and why do we really need to be worried about it? And to have a campaign that says yes is the important first step.
And it did it in a nice way too. It was kind of a non-threatening way. There were old things, right? Older in the 80s. I'm dating myself, but whatever.
Me too.
Yeah, like just don't
just
do
say
drugs.
no.
Just say no. Right? And then we know that just say no didn't always work. So it was really good about giving people the information that they could talk to their kids or other loved ones in their family about this issue. Like I said, that it was evidence-based. We knew that the message was tried and true, that we'd be able to use it, that it wasn't causing any harm to folks in the community. We knew it was correct information. That's why Cuyahoga County Adams Board, that we felt really comfortable in joining the campaign.
Our friends in Yakima Valley in Washington State talks about their reliance on evidence-based materials as well, and how to translate Talk They Hear You into other languages. Alicia Tobin from Safe Yakima Valley, which they call SAFE in the region, advises the following.
We have the DFC grant for our coalition. And obviously with the Drug Free Coalition is where most of our work comes with the Talk They Hear You. That's where the partnership and collaboration using your materials fits in so nicely. So we work very closely with the schools to do the drug-free and drug prevention work. We have life skills training that we have in the schools. We're the largest county in the state of Washington in terms of geographical area, not by population size, but we're very spread out. And so we have several high schools, we have several middle schools that we work with. About 50% of our population is Latino, so we're about half and half, with other minority groups being very tiny percentages. So predominantly it's Caucasian and Latino. And then the other side, we do a youth mentoring program where the schools identify elevated risk youth. And we go out in the community and find mentors to mentor these youth one-on-one 4 hours a month. But we also take some of our materials from the coalition and the Talk They Hear You campaign to use as reference tools and tools for the mentoring program.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love that you told us about the ethnic makeup of the people that you serve. That's can be an important component. And then, so pretty rural, would you say, as well? Okay.
Yes, we are an ag-based community. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Good to know.
I jumped in and started drinking from the fire hose in May of last year. Literally last minute booked a flight to CADCA mid-year in Orlando. And that was my first exposure where I started to see some of the Talk They Hear You stuff. For me, I'm very grateful because I was immersed so quickly. There was this huge emphasis on evidence-based programs. And what I found in a very short period of time, which was I was in awe to see how many organizations had been around for a very long time that were still using prevention tools and techniques that are not backed by evidence any longer. Like the evidence says otherwise. And so for me, it was very critical that SAFE incorporated exclusively evidence-based strategies in what we're doing in the community. And so then I just started digging and researching Talk They Hear You. I just immersed myself into the materials after attending CADCA mid-year.
That's fantastic. I want to know which materials you guys have used since you've been involved. But first, you said you had a school-based presence. Is that the predominant way in which you're connecting with parents, or is there any other dynamic in the community where you're intersecting with parents?
So primarily, yes, through the schools.
Okay.
That is where we get our one-on-one interactions specifically, but we have used the PSAs. In fact, we've translated some of them into Spanish. So we coordinated the PSAs with certain campaigns, prevention gains in the month. So we did the incident in February for Marijuana
Okay.
Prevention Month. We were
Excellent.
doing choices, obviously, for April for Alcohol Awareness Month. And then we also have Keeping Our Children Safe, which we're going to launch about the time that we're doing our drug take back event at the end of April. So we're trying to overlap and make sure that we have connections with the national campaigns. Simultaneously, we have billboards. So we have
Great.
2 in English, 1 in Spanish. We worked to find some photos because we found that the photos were predominantly more Caucasian audiences
Okay.
or African American. And since we didn't have a large African American population here, and we do
Right.
have such a large Latino population, and how they view their meals is so different than the Caucasian culture. So we found a family photo that we integrated into the billboard, as we thought that would be a great opportunity to open up discussions. So
Brilliant.
we were doing the PSAs. So we're obviously reaching parents that way. We picked times that parents would be on their commutes, either to work or dropping kids off at school. We have the billboards in 3 of the most populated and driven roads in Yakima. And then one of the radio stations that we partnered with had us come on once a month. So once in February, once in March, and already once this month. And we talk about the Talk They Hear You campaign and some of the steps. And that is actually about a 10 to 15 minute conversation. And then we put it on our website. We also have the links in English and Spanish on our Drug Free Action Team's page on our website as well. And then we've used the brochures and fact sheets at various events. One of the ESDs did a Hidden in Plain Sight. We partnered with them and printed some flyers. And then we're going to be handing out some additional flyers at the drug take back event in April.
I love hearing how you've integrated it with so many things that it can be a thread throughout, but it doesn't preclude you're using other programs and focusing on other messages at different times, like Take Back Day, which is a great one, right?
Right. And then we also heavily rely on the pre-crafted social media packages. So that's another way that we reach youth. And then we tag the schools that we partner with and some of the other prevention partners that are doing the prevention work as well, so they can tag back and follow.
Is there an ask with the materials and any issues or ease or not around co-branding?
So I just dove into the branding guide, and I mean, it's pretty detailed to the percentage, how much percentage smaller our logo needs to be as compared to the Talk They Hear You logo, and what changes you can make and not make. And so we integrate all of that on our social media posts. We put our logo on all of them. We put our logo on the billboards. And then at the end of each PSA, we tagged "Brought to you by Safe Yakima Valley." And made sure that fit. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things we did find in translating the Talk They Hear You PSAs into Spanish is how many more words the Spanish language has than the English language. And so we actually had to chisel down the message slightly to fit into that 30-second PSA. And so that was a bit of a challenge to make sure that we didn't change the actual overall message, but maybe removed some of the scripting so that we could fit it into that 30 seconds. And the radio station, we've worked with this gal for years. She gives us a template that has a certain font size, and then we type it in English. And once it gets to 10 lines, we know that will fit 30 seconds. And so then we kind of have to massage it and work backwards from there.
That's a very sophisticated little tool that she hands you. That's great. Good. So I am glad that the branding was straightforward and you were able to integrate it.
Joelle Orek, the coordinator of prevention and early intervention programs at the Sacramento County Coalition for Youth, is joined by 2 youth ambassadors, Briley and Christina. They go on to tell us about meeting parents where they are and not adding to the overwhelm that parents feel when talking about prevention.
We have the mobile app information on our website and share the information if parents want to go that step. I know some of our parents in the coalition talk about they loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, there's this app. And, and they just were really excited about it. So they talked about that. And so we share about that when we're talking about the program. We try to provide as much as we can without overwhelm. And then this is why the campaign is so great because there's so many different aspects. And so for every individual who needs it in a little bit different way, there's just so much to offer. And so I just think that's why the campaign is so valuable and all the different materials are so important.
Well, we really appreciate your saying that. It's been such a great experience for everyone on the product team to hear how it's being used and hearing the flexibility, because that was the original idea, is to create something that really could add value, that could be tailored to the local environment. And to hear you say that, yes, that is what's happening is really gratifying. We really appreciate this.
It is really great. I do want to address, you asked about parent night out. And one of
Yeah.
the things that we've discovered is that if we create a standalone event, often it's very difficult to get parents there because they're busy. And especially when emerging from the pandemic, trying to figure out what's important to go to and what's not. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that we're really trying to do is either partner with another event that's going on and come and bring our materials and share that information there for parents to take, like the postcards or the magnets, at a place so they already are. And that varies, and I'm telling you, that varies across the board, where some of them are like health fairs or neighborhood events or that type of thing. We're sharing our information this weekend at the NBA playoff game. And so, where we can get where parents and families are, we just take advantage of whatever opportunity we can, as opposed to creating our own event, but jumping in where other things are already happening.
That's so smart and so intuitive. Life is busy. It's hard to do things in a one-off capacity.
The Talk They Hear You product team was delighted to hear that the campaign can make smaller organizations feel large. Shannon from Southeast Ohio shares thoughts about this.
The work that you're doing, it is truly remarkable.
Thank you. I know that I want to say it's intimidating when you're from a small region and you see a national campaign and you see how, because we don't have DFC funding, we don't have those things. So when we look at this and it's like, well, are we doing enough? Do we meet up to the standards and the levels that other communities out in the country are doing? And yet here I am on a national podcast talking about what we're doing in our region of the state. So it's very nice to have that attention on the work that we're doing.
I'm glad, because it's quite worthy, and it explains how much can be done at any level with whatever levels of funding. So we really appreciate you sharing that, so other regions and other counties can know.
No, thank you.
And we were amazed at what Sacramento's youth ambassadors have made of the Talk They Hear You campaign. Here's Joelle Oryx, Briley, and Christina speaking with us again.
When the coalition began, we always knew we wanted to have young people at the table. That was clearly one of our values, and really looking at having folks sit with us as we created our action plan, and then all the way through the process. At the very beginning, the youth that were with us said, "You're not going to do anything about us without us." And so we wanted to make sure that every step of the way we had young people involved. And what that has really evolved into is their own group. They want to be part of the coalition. They come to the coalition meetings and participate, and it's fantastic. But they also wanted their own arm to kind of get together and build community among peers. And so we and they together created our Sacramento Ambassadors for Change. And we call them the SAC, and they're just an arm of the Sacramento County Coalition for Youth, and just a really amazing group of young people. And Christina and Briley, who are with us this morning, are part of that group.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. What was your phrase? Nothing about us without us?
Yes. Yes.
I love that. Okay, so does the SAC, the ambassador group, also work with the Talk They Hear You campaign, or is it that higher level coalition that's primarily working with it?
The youth ambassadors do use the Talk to Hear You materials. They use them in our presentations that we develop to educate parents and youth in the community. We love using the resources and the things that the campaign has provided us with. We even use their videos in our presentations. We think they're very inspirational and realistic for parents to hear. So that's just a few ways. We also do like tabling events. We help and participate with those, and we have provided those resources to the community as well.
That's great. So the youth ambassadors are doing both parent and youth presentations. Did I hear that correct?
Yes. The coalition, since the very beginning, we host a youth listening circle every year to hear from young people on what they consider the most current and biggest needs or issues are in our community and what they're seeing and experiencing. And every listening circle we've hosted, one of the answers is parents. We need to talk to parents. We need to work with parents and caregivers. And so from the very beginning, in 2016, we initiated Talk They Hear You as one of our campaigns. We did a big kickoff press conference at the Sacramento Zoo because it was a family oriented location. We had our Board of Supervisors acknowledge that April 6th was Talk They Hear You Day in Sacramento County. And so really kicked it off to get the word out in the community and then provide materials and opportunities for families.
So if you started in 2016, and am I hearing you correctly? These are listening sessions with youth, and the youth are telling you that somebody needs to be talking to our parents?
Yes, yeah. When we do the listening sessions once a year in the beginning of the school year, we gather young people, not just from our group, our student ambassador group, but from around the county and try to bring in as many young people from as many different communities and groups and age groups, middle school, high school, and college age, so we can really hear from them on what they're seeing and experiencing around substance use. And so then we take those responses and as our broad coalition kind of go through them and talk about these are the issues that they're seeing and hearing and experiencing. What can we as a coalition do to address those?
The listening session itself is such a great idea for every reason you just said, in involving the community and really hearing what the needs are. That kids want their parents to get educated is just a fascinating outcome, or is one of the outcomes of those. So, and I think we're actually starting to hear that in other places too. We've talked to some kids ourselves on a podcast recently where that came out as well. So I think as parents, we all need to wake up a little bit. But let me ask, right? Let me ask you about the media plan. If you started in 2016, do you find that you have a media presence every year? Do you schedule? How does that end up working out over the years?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that because when we first did it, we chose key times of year that we thought were kind of risky seasons, so to speak. So we do spring campaign, kind of April, May, June, because it's prom time and graduation. And then as we launch into summer and young people have a lot more freedom, that we considered a risky season. We also looked at back to school as some young people are transitioning into new schools or moving up a grade and just new peer groups and those types of things. So those are seasons again where we wanted parents and young people to be aware of, hey, here's some resources, here's some things that you might want to think about. And then also the holidays. I've heard just interesting data about the day before Thanksgiving. That's the day that a lot of young people initiate drinking. And so that was the third season that we wanted to really make sure our campaigns would be broadcast. We've done them significantly in those seasons. Since 2016, we had a focus on marijuana prevention in 2017 and 18 because California legalized recreational marijuana. And so we needed to kind of shift. But that's one of the great things about the Talk They Hear You campaign is that I know initially we talked about alcohol prevention, but the campaign crosses substances, that we can use that campaign and those concepts to encourage parents to talk to their kids early and often about all substances.
I want to get back to the youth ambassador group and the fact that you, as younger people, are finding the campaign valuable, and the way you're finding it valuable is so intriguing because it's a campaign that was built for parents and caregivers, right? So that you've translated it is really interesting to me.
Well, it's so important important for parents and guardians and just people who work with youth to understand the dangers, because not having the conversation is a conversation itself, and that you have to be able to build that trust, build these relationships, because you can't just one day go and talk to your student and just throw it all at them and be like, drugs are bad, and then skip on it for a year or years to come. Like, you have to be able to build that so students can be more informed, because at a younger age, especially if you tell them these things, they'll understand it more, pick it up more, and then over time, if they want to be like, hey, like, how exactly bad is it, go more into education, especially with like Google. We have so many resources. It's just really important for them to understand that these conversations are impactful on the youth.
I also think it builds like the trust and the relationship between the parents and the youth, even if it's not about drugs and alcohol, that youth are able to talk to their parents about anything at that point. So if they ever find themselves in trouble or that they're not doing well in school, maybe they have that confidence to talk with their parents because they know that they're listening and that they'll be able to help them and aid them with their issues going on.
That's great. What you just said expands the concept, right? And this idea of being in communication hits all kinds of topics, not just drugs and alcohol, but it allows your conversation with parents to cross into other subject areas. But what I also wanted to ask is, does something about you two and the other ambassadors being younger carry a stronger message to parents that you're talking to? Do you think there's any dynamic there?
Oh, 100%. Because I know we recently went and did a marijuana prevention summit, and just us doing that presentation, because it was strictly about just what youth are hearing and seeing, like media at school, even with their parents. And for us doing that presentation, it has so much more of an effect because we're able to bring to light things they may not know or products they may not know. And even showing them, oh, yeah, these are what teens are using. This is what we're experiencing. It really surprises them because they're not always with their kids or their youth. They're only there half the time, so they don't see everything. And with youth telling them, like, hey, this is important to us, this is a big deal, we need to start making change, that just shows exactly how important it is. And, like, oh, well, if our youth are saying we need to change, we have to change. We have to start making toward that change.
It kind of ties to that concept we were talking about a minute ago. Parents are behind. And I feel like your voices are getting their attention in a way that me or just any other adult might not. That's really exciting. Did you guys know that that was going to be the case when you started this? I mean, because this is something a little different than nothing about us without us, right? This is, wow, we have some influence in a broader sphere. When did you realize you had that influence?
I've personally been in like the preventative work since middle school, joining a club that was based around prevention work. At first, it just started as like, oh, okay, it's just a little club for me and my friends to hang out with, and like, you know, we get to talk and present, which is cool. But the more I got into it, the more I realized through the presentations and from those events that we held that it was making a difference in our own like youth lives. And I realized that youth listen to youth more than they listen to adults sometimes. So having to share that experience with other youth in the community has impacted them. So I think that's the most important thing, is having that youth on youth conversations, because it gets the message out more and they can tell their friends and it just spreads. So I love that that's kind of how the power of talking with our fellow peers has grown.
Beautifully said. When did you realize that your youth voice was going to impact parents and caregivers? Did that just happen?
Well, I joined SAC when the pandemic first hit, so I didn't fully understand how beneficial youth voices are until after I joined it. I went to meetings with the Sacramento County Coalition for Youth, and just even being there and putting in my little insights, they were really surprised, and they're like, oh, we didn't notice that. And it was great because just everything I was saying, it was quickly getting picked up like, oh, okay, this is important. I didn't know this before. So then just after going through that and then joining SAC, the more I was talking to adults and to youth and to just guardians and parents in general, the more I realized, oh, my voice is actually a lot more important than I assumed it was.
I think there's a belief in prevention that youth are important in the process, but I feel like this conversation is kind of taking it to the next level. It's not just important, it's powerful in a way that maybe our listeners don't know and that you guys have certainly experienced in Sacramento.
I think that's really true. And I would say that one of the best things that we've done with our coalition is making that space and welcoming young people and creating it that young people are clear partners. They're not just, oh, we have some youth here with us today. It's not like that. It's we're all members of the coalition. And like Briley said, our adults listen when the young people talk and they value that role. And that's been something that I've been very grateful for with our coalition. It's an amazing group of folks. And when we're doing recruiting for the coalition, I always say, you should join us. We're great. I mean, and it's just a great group of adults and young people together. It's wonderful.
We will finish this episode with favorite Talk They Hear You campaign deliverables that we heard from our partners. Again, the creativity is amazing. Listen to Clark County describe their tents and National Trails survey.
So we've partnered with a few of our local schools because we were thinking, where do parents hang out in schools, right? Sporting events, outdoors events, those sorts of things. So we asked the schools, what if we gave you a tent? Like one of those larger athletic tents that you can set up, like a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 15. And we branded it with your logo, our logo, a Talk They Hear You message, and the Talk They Hear You logo. And they were shocked that they're like, we can get this for free. And we're like, yes, like we have these funds to do this messaging. How great would that be to be able to set that up at all your events, like cross country events, soccer, baseball, football, any kind of outdoor event you have going on, band, etc., marching band, like whatever you want to use it for, it's yours to use. We just need to get this messaging out here. And we have them designed so that there's a wall on one side of it, and that wall has a larger prevention message that goes along with the Talk They Hear You logo. And then Carrie, did you want to mention the ad?
Sure. We partnered with our National Trails Parks and Recreation. They like our messaging. They asked to put banners up at their swimming pool, at their baseball parks. And we put little soccer players, baseball players, swimmers on it. And they also then have a programming book that they send out to 65,000 people. On our ad that we ran with the Parks and Recreation, we also have a QR code that leads back to our parent survey that we've been doing the last 3 years to collect data on, first of all, are our parents seeing this message? What is happening in our community? Are parents observing other parents providing alcohol to youth in our community? And what do they think are the biggest concerns with substance use in our community? So that gives us another outlet to gather that information and then to look at the data so that we can then develop strategies that will prevent substance use in our community. So we've just really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to use the Talk They Hear You messaging and provide all that for us. Those PSAs are just invaluable along with all the other materials because we do not have the money or time to create.
Here's Shannon from Gallia Jackson Meigs talking about their county fairs.
Big brag from our 3 counties was more of our outside of the box thinking and started in Meigs County, and it was Prevention Kids Day at the fair with the No Drugs campaign back in 2018. They were doing bike giveaways and providing prevention information. Well, last year we introduced at all 3 of our counties Prevention Day at our fairs. We've been in Meigs County, it was well attended. It was the first year that they had over 300 kids and everybody from all over. It wasn't just our county. It was from West Virginia. We had folks from upper Columbus area coming down, and they were getting that messaging. They got that information. We had Talk They Hear You out, but we're kicking it off again this year. within all 3 counties, and we work closely with our fair boards, and Talk They Hear You is going to be implemented and advertised at
Brilliant.
these fairs.
And Doris shares their work with sports teams in Florida.
One area that we really focused on that I got very passionate about because my son and I are very passionate about sports. We have 3 major sports teams in our area, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Lightning, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have all been very successful. We have done a lot with both the Lightning, the Bucks, and particularly the Tampa Bay Rays, which is where a lot of families go and watch games, and they watch them
Yeah.
on TV. And we've done
Yeah.
heavy advertising, communication messaging during those games at the ball field. And the response to the message, particularly about the commercial we use a lot on that one, is the father talking to the child. They're in the garage. He's about to leave and go. And dad says, "Hey, if your friends ever ask you to do,
Yeah.
just tell them your dad said no." And that has just had phenomenal response and speaks to families that are
Yeah.
taking their kids somewhere. And then we talk a lot about find those times to talk to your kids. It could be doing chores, at meals, in the car. We did a targeted campaign where we broadcast radio during car line pickups where people are going to middle schools
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
picking up their kids at all those
Yeah.
school levels. And so
Wow.
we know that parents and caregivers are getting the message and aware that they need to have conversations with their kids throughout the life stage.
And finally, Sacramento's family meal kits.
We love the talking tips that are used from the Talk They Hear You campaign. That's like our favorite things to share with parents because it really does show the step-by-step on how to build that relationship with your youth.
Have little meal kits where they have like games and stuff like that that you can have at the dinner table that can start conversations, or even just where you can bring in resources or information and just kind of opening up and building that comfortable environment.
Can you tell me any more about that kit? Is it a box or a placemat, or what have you put together?
We have the way we package it, we give it out is we have like a little cup just for people to have like to refill like water or stuff for drinks. And then we do have a placemat in there that has facts, resources, things to reach out for us for more information as well. And then with that placemat and the cup, we insert this little pocket card that has a ring on it. So it's multiple talking cards. And it just has questions like, what was your favorite thing to do when you were younger, for students to ask parents, or for parents to ask youth, oh, who are you hanging out with these days? So parents can get to know what their kids have and what's going on in their kids' personal lives. And then it has stuff about drug use and alcohol use, like, oh, what would you do if you were offered alcohol at a party? And so it's used for parents to teach kids how to refuse that or deny. It could be used for like any age, personally, because you can always adjust the questions. Even if they're not in there, they kind of just give you a guide. I've heard parents say that they used it with their 2-year-old, and they sometimes are just like, oh, who's your favorite Disney princess? Even having little small conversations.
Ah.
You can adjust it by the age.
We also heard that plans are underway as each coalition gets ready for National Prevention Week. This demonstrates more ways Talk They Hear You can complement all kinds of prevention efforts. Alicia from Safe Yakima Valley shares.
Like I mentioned, is the hidden in plain sight of it, but that's going to be month
Right.
end. It's tied into that. The other thing that we did at Safe Yakima is I had some HIDA funds. So Yakima, unfortunately, has the distinction of being a high intensity drug trafficking area. So we are allowed to apply for additional grant funds. And they're smaller grants, but what I did with a portion of our grant funds is I actually hired 2 youth, one from Eisenhower High School, which is our largest high school here in town, and one from Davis High School, which is also very close in size. They're from the same school district, but I hired them to work no more than 10 hours a week each. So we allow them to work around their prevention club schedules and allow them to work around their sports schedules. One of our gals is on the debate team, and so she went to state and work around that. But we pay them basically to help grow the prevention club and then do various activities during these organized prevention theme weeks. And so we will work with them and have flyers and fun activities. An example of what we did during National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week, we actually had the students complete a survey, and the incentive for completing the survey and turning it in was that their name got entered into a drawing for earbuds and also in a drawing to participate in the tortilla slap challenge with their school principal. And they had a huge response as a result of that. We had what is your natural high and had the students fill those out as well and decorate the hallway. So we will do similar activities for the National Prevention Week in May.
It has been a pleasure talking with these groups. The work our partners are doing with the Talk They Hear You campaign in the field is creative, thoughtful, and amazing. Our partners are the heartbeat of the Talk They Hear You campaign as they champion public health in their communities and beyond. As we end this episode, we appreciate what Scott Oskey shared with us.
So what I really want to say is that I think that communities all over should take advantage of this or any other free resources that SAMHSA has, or especially this campaign, because it really does. It's multicultural. It affects a lot of different people. I think it's really an easy to use campaign, also easy to brand for yourselves. So our advice would be that you definitely take advantage of what SAMHSA has to offer with this campaign.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Thank you for listening today. This year also marks the 10th anniversary of the Talk They Hear You campaign. Talk They Hear You started in 2013 as a program for parents and caregivers, and we will always support this vitally important group in reducing underage drinking and other drug use. Over the years, however, we have added materials and messages for schools and educators to empower education's role in reducing and preventing youth use. Talk They Hear You has now expanded their message and materials to recognize community members and highlight the importance of the whole community and the role it plays in prevention and kids' health. We want to remind listeners that all Talk They Hear You materials discussed in this episode and including this podcast can be found at the Talk They Hear You website. Please share this site and this podcast with your colleagues and friends. The more we can be in conversation with each other, the better for everyone, especially kids. This podcast is brought to you by SAMHSA. Of note, the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily those of SAMHSA or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.